Hello, in this project I am going to demo how to use the convert class to convert back and forth between different data types in C#. So as opposed to other languages like Python and JavaScript and Lua, when you make a variable, you have to say what type of value is going to be stored in that variable. And there are times when you need to convert between different types. Like somebody gives you a number, but it's as a text string, and you need to actually convert that to an arithmetic type so you can do some math on it. Let's just do a quick demo of how to do something like that. So I'm going to go into a solution here, and I'm just going to right click and say add. I'm going to add a new project here, and I'll call it conversions, and I'm just going to make this a console app and click OK. And there's my program. So my code, the code I'm going to write is going to go all in here. If I run this, it'll pop up the little console window, and then the console window will immediately close. So I want to hold open the console by saying console.read key, and what that will do is just the console will sit there waiting for me to hit a key, and then it'll prevent the program from closing. So your program will start here at main and run until it finishes main, and then it's done. Alright, and I need to make sure this is my startup project, otherwise that won't run when I click the run button. So let's just verify that this works. I'm going to say console.writeLine. Type conversion demo, just so we can see this thing working, and then it should pop open the little window there, and you can see it says conversion demo. I can also make the text a little bit bigger. Properties, font, make it like 28 or something. There, that's a little easier to read. Okay, and you can see here, it's waiting for me. It's stuck on this console.read key. If I go up to the debug menu and I say break all, let's see where it goes. You can see that the program is kind of right there in console.read key. So what I did was I halted my program to see where it was, and I'll just click the button again. It's still waiting for me to hit a key, and now I'll hit a key, and I'm done. So inside of here, this is where we're going to do our conversions. Now, how do we convert back and forth between different data types? There is an object or a class in the language called convert, and whose sole job it is to help you convert back and forth between various data types. So let's just say I needed to get a number from the user, and then add 10 to it, or I'll get two numbers from the user, and I'll add them together here. So let me make a string. I'll call it string 1 equals console dot read line, and it'll kind of autocomplete for you. Console dot read, no, not console key, console dot read line. And why don't I say something like enter a number. Sorry, my cursor's hopping all over the place. Enter a number. Enter the first number. There we go. And then we just copy and paste that, and we'll say enter the second number, and we'll call this string 2. Notice I can't redefine string 1. I already said making a variable called string 1 that stores a string. I can't redefine string 1. I can't say I'm going to make another variable called string 1, because then there's no way to figure out which one I mean. So I'll call that string 2. So I have a variable called string 1 and a variable called string 2. And what do they store? They store strings. What are strings? Strings are just text, letters, letters stuck together. It's a string of letters, a string of alphanumeric characters, more accurately. So let's just run that and see what it does. I'm going to put a breakpoint there, and I'm going to run this. F9 will get you one of those little stop signs. Enter the first number, 20. Enter the second number, 25. Okay, now it's I'm at that console.read key, and it's just waiting for me to hit another key to continue. Why? Oh, it's stuck on my breakpoint. There we go. Let's try that again, just to show you that it works. enter the first number, 34, 25, okay? And now it's waiting for me to hit a key, and it's done. All right, so let's walk through this with the debugger, and I'm just going to show you why we need to do the type conversions. So when I say enter the first number and I type in 25, you can see my program is halted down here. So I've read in string 1, and if I hover over string 1, I should be able to see, okay, well it's not going to do that for me, but let's go down into our autos window here, and if you hover over string 1, you can see it says 25 with quotation marks around it. The quotation marks means that that's a character representation of the number 25. That's the text for the number 25. So if I want to add that to another number, I can't add the text together. You can't add text. That doesn't make any sense. I need to convert the text to its numeric equivalents and add those together. So that's what I'm going to need the convert class for. And let me keep going here. And now it's going to ask me for a second number. I'll put 46 and I'm going to enter. Okay, so let's look at our let me hit a key, and there we go. And let's look at what string 2 ended up being. String 2 is 46. You can see its type is a string. Like that means it's text. It's the character 4 and the character 6. It's not the number 46. So let's see what we have to do to add those together. That's where we need to use the convert class. So let me make an integer here. So an integer is a whole number called, int1 or something. I'll call it first int. There you go. That's a much more descriptive name. So how do I convert string 1 to an integer? Well, I use the convert class. And if I hit the dot, you'll see there's all sorts of functions in here. To byte, to char, to date time, to decimal, to int32, int16, to single, that's a floating point number. To double, that's a double precision floating point number. Int64s, those are long ints. So I can convert really between, from one type to another type. What do we want to do? We want to convert to an int32, a 32-bit integer. That's our garden variety integer. And so you can see if I hover over the int, it says it's a system, it says it's a system int32. So that's what we want to convert to. And then inside of that function, what do I give that function to convert? Well, you can see there's 19 different ways to call that function. Those are called overloads. But if I go through all these, you'll see that one of them is surely a string, right? I give this function in a string. It returns me out an integer. So let's say convert string 1 to an integer, and I'll make sure I end all my lines with semicolons. And then let me convert string 2 to an integer. And now let me add them together. I'll make another integer called sum, and I'll say it's the first int plus the second int. So now I can add these things together because, well, if you add strings together, then it appends the two strings together. So if you say if you try to add cat and dog together, then you get cat dog, right? That's not what we want in math. When we add 3 and 4, we don't get 34, we get 7, right? So if we want to add these things math-like, in a math-like way, we have to convert them to integers. And now let's print out the sum. Console, not console, the console dot write line sum. So I'll just write that to the console. And let's just say sum equals plus, right? So stick these two things together. The word sum equals plus the actual number that was the result of that calculation. So let's run that and just see what it does. 45, 7. I should give sum equals 52. Cool. So what would happen though if I had entered something that couldn't be converted to an integer? Like I added, let's just run it and see what happens, right? If I type in a bunch of garbage, that's not an integer, right? So what happened when I tried to do the conversion, you can see the program crashed. It blew up. It's called throwing an exception. And this error message here will say that unhandled exception, it's a system.format exception. So it says the input string was not in the correct format. So there are ways to safeguard against bad stuff like that happening. I'm not going to talk about them now, but be aware you can't just convert anything to an integer. It's got to be like characters that we would look at and say, okay, that's a number. So there you go. Now, what if we wanted to convert? Well, all right. Before I go on, where is this going to show up? Why are we going to need to do this? Like, why are we going to need to convert strings to numbers? Well, imagine that we've got an interface on the screen like this. We were typing in, making a graphic version of this. We're going to be getting our input from text boxes. The text boxes will have a text property, so we'll have to go into the text boxes and convert their text using the convert class. So we'll have to say something like convert.toInt32, textbox1.text. Get the text property from textbox1 and convert that to an integer. That's where this is going to show up. Anytime that the user types in text, but we want to do math on it, we've got to convert the text to numbers. What if you wanted to convert a number to text? That's very, very easy, because everything in C# has a function in it called toString. So, and I'll show you that here. Console.writeLine. So let me print out 5.toString. So even the number 5, which is a constant, has a toString function. Everything in C# has a toString function. And then let me say, add that to 9.toString. So this is convert the number 5 to text and add it to, well, what do I have to add it to? Well, take the number 9, convert that to text, and stick them together. So if I added 5 and 9 together, you'd think I'd get 14. But here I'm taking the letter 5 and the letters for 9, and I'm sticking them together, and I'm going to end up with 59. So so that's an example of, you can convert anything in the C# world to a string, which means to text, by just saying .toString on the end. Every object has a toString function. You call that object's toString function. The dot is the apostrophe S. Number 5's toString function. So I will say just here, 5 plus 9 equals ... and then print out the thing on the next line. Let's run that and see what happens. 4, 8, so I get 12. So you can see 5 plus 9 is 59, right? Now that doesn't seem to make sense, but it makes sense if you understand that we're taking the number 5, converting it to text, taking the number 9, converting that to text, and sticking the text pieces together to make a bigger string. So that's why this is what happens when you add strings together using the plus sign. They just get stuck onto the end of each other, as opposed to being added together mathematically. So there's an example of using the convert class. Anytime you need to go from text to a numeric form like an int or a double or a float, use the convert class and call the appropriate method to int32, to double, to float, whatever you want. I guess there's no to float, there's a to single. And then to go the other way, to take any object and convert it to text, you can call its toString function. So there you go. There's examples of how to use convert.